Welcome to SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I'm your host, Susie St. Angelo, and thanks for being here. Today's episode is called Style Isn't a Luxury, It's a Strategy, and I'll be talking with Beth Divine. Beth is the only certified image consultant throughout the prestigious Association of Image Consultants International, a global association of more than 600 members around the world. Beth served as the president of the Chicago Midwest chapter of AICI and works in the greater Indianapolis area with private clients. She's a graduate of Taylor University and Ball State University. So this podcast is for you if you know you want to change something. Maybe it's your career, your health, or another aspect of your life, and you might wonder if this is the right age or stage in life to make a change. And you don't know where to start. Or maybe you're that person caught in analysis paralysis. I understand. I see you. I was that way too. But you know what? Every episode, there's a little tip or tidbit that you can take away and make a small change that'll make a big difference. So stay with me as we embark on this journey. And just a reminder, you can find this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, iHeart, and Amazon platforms. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's get into today's episode and meet my guest, Beth Divine. Hi, Beth.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Susan?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you for joining me on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I've known you a few years, and I love what you do, both personally and professionally. And I think it ties in with wellness and confidence and all things that relate to our health. So I'm eager to have this conversation. So I want to begin with asking you to tell the listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself and how you got into styling.
Oh, great. Thank you, Susan. Well, styling and image consulting is a third act for me. I actually started out as a social worker, and it wasn't a great fit. And then I went back to school. I got my master's in communications from Ball State, and I then worked in public relations and communications for about 25 years. I loved it. And as you know, communications and writing is all about image, which really ties in to what I do now. It's a written image, but I love that job. I was very much on the creative end. I started out as a writer, and I went into editing. I moved to Indianapolis and started working with, it's called IU Health now, Clearing Health. And I started working on some really big clinical teams as the sole marketer. And I wrote all the brochure copy. That was back when print was king, that's all changed, probably for the better, because I remember, companies spending thousands of dollars. I worked on projects that were like $50,000 print projects, and then is there going to be a typo in it? There better not be. So it was a lot of stress. I loved it, but it was stressful. And during that time when I was working on the teams, I also volunteered to work on the photo shoots because those directly tied in to what I was saying, and it all needed to gel and work together. And that was later on in my 13 years at Clearing Health, now IU Health. And I started working with photographers and then their staff, and they often had a stylist on staff. And I thought, oh, how neat. And they actually let me run out and sometimes dress the people in the photo shoots. And I learned, that what they were wearing was part of the story. It fit into my content. And they also had makeup artists there. And I thought, wow, this is really fun. I didn't even know this existed. And I thought, and then after a while, several years, kind of doing the same thing, I'd worked on every service line there. My favorite one was transplant. I love that team. And I would work with physicians, the nurses, other clinicians, and it was great. But it was time for something new. There were changes going on there, as often happens at every large company. So I left, and I needed something else to do. So I started looking around, and I started out being a makeup artist, and I thought I would do commercial photo shoots like the ones I had worked on. I didn't end up doing that. I did do wedding makeup for about 2 to 3 years, and I really enjoyed that. And I never really had any bridezillas. I mean, everyone's nervous on your wedding day, right? But I met lovely people. I learned a lot about makeup, but that's important, of course, in your image. And I learned a lot about that. And but after, 2 to 3 years of working almost every weekend, every Saturday, I mean, at the zenith of my makeup time, I had 3 weddings in one day, and you can't make mistakes. And, but I enjoyed it, but I was done. I was tired of every weekend. So I started looking around, and I thought, I think I'd like to do stylist training, like the ones I had met in my other job. And so I started out training with School of Style in California, Hollywood, California. And I did their certification program in Manhattan for 10 days. Love that, 'cause, Manhattan's the center of fashion and all that. And then from there, I started building my business. And since I knew a lot about marketing, I was fortunate from that end that I could build my own website. I worked on websites, the content anyway, not the techie part. But I wrote my own copy. I started gathering my professional headshots. But I felt like I needed more training because my training had focused on celebrity styling. And there's not a lot of celebrity styling in Indianapolis. It's more like, everyday people, professionals. And so I decided to focus more on that. And then I discovered image consulting and the Association of Image Consulting International. And I started really delving into their training, which just takes styling up to another notch, because you're really teaching people about the whole person, how you speak, how you present yourself, how you look, and really how you feel about yourself too. So it's all of that. And I continued with that, and I took my certification test. I had to take a test, submit a portfolio, and I earned the first level of certified image consulting, and that was really helpful. And then from there, I got involved in my professional organization, which I think everyone should do. It's good to push yourself to be in leadership and help others and all that. And then that really helped me then kind of take me where I am now, where I work with private clients. Sometimes I do corporate talks. But my love is really working one-to-one and doing a lot of teaching about image, how you present yourself, and why that's important.
As I listen to you, Beth, and your story, I'm convinced that one thing leads to another. And your background with communication and the things that you did there and what you're presenting to the public led you to the next step, which is the image, and, the bridal, which led you to the image consulting now and what you do. I think it's fascinating. There's no coincidences, and I definitely think that one thing leads to another.
Yes. And sometimes you can think, am I unstable? I'm like, why am I moving around to other things? But I think it's just part of life. And I've always been one that I get bored. I want to do something new. I've always had the creative bent, which I think you definitely need in styling. You really need the creative, how to inspire people to do something new. But also, I think just that spirit of being open to what comes along and learn what you're good at. I think that's part of life, really.
I agree with you, and it's an evolution. And I don't think unless you absolutely know what you want to do and be in school, it's not a straight path. It's a winding path. And
so true.
So I want to ask you: do you work with both men and women?
Yes, I at different times of my career, I've worked with more women and then I'll work with more men. But I've had training with both. And, I can't say I really prefer one over the other. Of course, being a woman, I think probably intuitively, when women sit down and tell me their story, I can relate and say, oh, I understand what you're saying. And with men, I probably ask more questions. But I was the youngest with 3 older brothers. So I feel like I have an understanding of men. And in my home, the men were outside doing things and I was inside with my mom. It was just the way I was raised. But I think men might not want to admit that they care about their style like women do. Like women will go on and tell you a lot about their style, but men care about it too, that they may think, is it okay to really care about that? Or it's kind of like, no, I don't care about that. But I think they know that in the workplace, the way you show up, even if you're online or not even in the office, is still important to your image, and it can make or break you.
I agree. I totally agree. And so my next question is, why do people seek an image consultant, a stylist like you? What are the reasons why people approach you?
Well, I'll kind of go back up. I send a really in-depth questionnaire now before I meet with clients. And I ask a lot of questions like, are you looking for a stylist because of a job change or a life change? Like a job change could be, I've been, since COVID, this is really common right now. Someone might say, since COVID, 3 or 4 years ago now, actually 5, I worked at home. I was virtual. Now my company says, you're coming in 3 days a week, which I've heard over and over. And that's a change for me. I've gained weight or I've lost weight. I don't have any clothes and I don't even know how to dress at work anymore. So that's a real big one, job related. Or they're in the office, they're in a job, and they may have gotten promoted and they think, I need to step out. It's very interesting about work style because I had a good friend of mine tell me, I never want to dress better than my boss, which I thought was really interesting.
It is interesting. I don't agree with that.
No, I don't either, but she really felt that way, and I thought that was different. But anyway, when people are promoted, they feel like they need to step up. And so they need to find the right level. What does stepping up mean for them? And that is so industry specific. Like if someone sits here, this is my office where I meet with people, and he or she says, I work in tech. So that tells me something right there. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to dress them in the black turtleneck, that Steve Jobs wore every day in his company. He owned the company. He could wear whatever he wanted, But it doesn't mean that. But it tells me, a little bit more of a relaxed field. They might not be front facing all the time. But or if someone says, I'm visiting clients. I'm a pharmacy representative. I'm out. I'm front facing. I still wear a suit. I still wear a jacket. So that tells me that. So with that, I get that a lot. People in their work, they're being promoted or a change, and they want to make a change in how they look. And when you make a change in how you look, it affects the inside, no doubt. When you look good and you have more confidence, when you don't look good. It's just that simple. So that's part of it. And also people, personal changes in life. I meet men and women both who are maybe going through a divorce or a big change, and they want to go out there and start dating again, or they're younger and, they're getting older. They want to find that special person. And maybe they're stuck in the way they dressed in college. We can look at a closet and see what stage of life we're in, believe it or not. But I get people who are in a personal change, and that's really common. And those changes can be divorce, dating, retirement is a big one. Because if you've had a career where you've dressed up and you have a lot of, expensive suits like St. John's and designer, you might not need all that now that you're retired. You're running to the gym, you're playing golf, you're seeing friends, but that doesn't mean you want all casual clothes. So with that type of person, I really look at their closet. We talk about, where are you in your life right now? That's a big part of it. It's not just going in and say, I don't like the style of that. The way I practice in my business, it's very personal to them. That's why I have to meet with people and really get to know them to an extent. I mean, I don't want to become a therapist, but you do have to know where people are in their life, what they're going through, why they need a change. So it's sometimes life related. And then also just this really is across the board, just basic, what do I look good in? So that's where I really rely on the training I've had in shapes and color and just so many things that I had to learn, such as, what is your shape? I mean, most women know their shape, but men have a shape too. So I'm going to give you an example of the ones that are hard to dress. Like my husband he's 6'1". He's thin, very thin, but he has a long torso and shorter legs. That is difficult to dress because there are gaps in the retail world for that kind of shape. But I've learned that I'll go online and look for the extended sizing. And he is a slim, tall, and certain stores have that, and that works, but not all talls are the same. So I think that third group are people who are really aware of some problems they have in finding the right clothes that look good on them. So that's a whole nother area. And I think, social media, people know so much a lot of times when they come to me. It's amazing how much they know. They know a lot about their color analysis. They think they know what their best colors are. They've been watching TikTok. They've been on Instagram. They think they know their style and shape. And I'm not offended by that. I love that, actually, that they're that interested. But there's also that third group. It's kind of like, I don't know how to dress my shape. And then the clothes that are out there, they don't work for me. And that's tied in to their shape. So I guess that's the three buckets of people that I work with. And then, it's interesting. Everyone has like voices from their childhood, like I worked with a redhead. I find redheads are really in tune usually to what colors. Like my mother told me never to wear pink in any way. She said I look terrible in pink. My mother wouldn't let me wear it. So kind of hear this, what you grew up with, or I could never wear khaki pants in any way, and I'll say, well, khaki pants have changed now. They're not all square and boxy. And so I try to bring my expertise from the retail world to each appointment. But I feel like my expertise really focuses on more dressing the individual in light of who they are, where they're going, versus being that stylist who knows every trend that was in the Paris, resort wear shows. I keep up on that, yes. But I also know that getting too caught up with trends can really be a problem because you're wearing things that everyone's wearing, but on you, it's not flattering.
Right. We will talk about that in just a minute, but I want to get back to, this questionnaire. So you receive this questionnaire and then you set up a visit with the potential client to come and see you. And then what happens? Give me a typical experience.
Okay. Well, I'll back up. If it's a color analysis, which is, I'll show you where I analyze color and we go through all of their colors and they receive that. I just do a color analysis. We don't do any questionnaire. But the color analysis combined with the style and shape, it relies heavily on this questionnaire. And this questionnaire just asks, where do you shop now? Do you have any favorite brands? What are your favorite colors? Just why are you coming? That's a good one because I always encourage them to spend a little time on that. And then also I try to find out how much they invest in clothes. Are they buying 100% from Amazon or fast fashion? Or are they spending 100% on extremely expensive clothes? And I find when people buy extremely expensive clothes, they're really mad when they don't work out. But anyway, so we talk about that. And I'll ask, what was your most recent purchase and how much was it? That tells me a lot.
It's great question to ask.
Yeah. Where do you shop now? Do you shop? This is a biggie. Do you shop online or do you shop in person? I could spend a whole hour talking about that, but that's a biggie.
Another podcast conversation.
Yes, that is. It is. I won't go there. But so I ask questions like that. And then what are your goals of our time? And a lot of people say, this is a real biggie that they write on this questionnaire. I have a lot of clothes, but I don't know what to do with them. That's really common. Or I don't have any clothes and I need to buy clothes. Or I buy clothes and then later I hate them. That's really common. So I give them options about what they want to accomplish, like do they want to learn how to put an outfit together, which is always a big one. Do they want to learn what styles and shapes work for them? They're going to learn that in this appointment because I created a book that goes through a lot of things, personal things with style. Like I really drill it down, such as what is the best hemline for you? What is the best shape of pants? This is a biggie because when the trends are telling you everything's wide leg pants, mom jeans, well, hate to tell you, they don't look great on everyone. I have bought mom jeans and altered them and they look better on me. But are they still wearing the skinny jeans, which frankly did not look good on a lot of people, but some people are still. So, and then we also, what is the best neckline? What is the best jacket shape? How many buttons should be in your jacket? How big should your jewelry be? Believe it or not. If you're a smaller person, you might not want to wear an earring this big. Now, I put these on today, and I know they're a little bit big for me because I'm from the small to slightly medium scale, but I know they're bigger, so I don't wear anything else. It carries it. It's a statement. And I also asked in this questionnaire, what are your favorite neutrals in your wardrobe, or do you even have any? Sometimes you need a healthy mix of neutrals in your closet and statement. Some people have all statement and they don't have any neutrals, or someone has all neutrals and basics, but no statement. So their outfit's kind of boring. So that's the one questionnaire. The other questionnaire I always try to do is a style questionnaire, and everyone is into style because it's all over social. Everyone, I think I'm this style or that style. And it is true that when you're dressing in a style that's not you, it's just not authentic. It's true. So this style quiz is really simple. It's on my website if you want to look it up. I have a women's and a men's, but it will tell you your major style personality and your secondary. And in this first appointment, we do go through style and discuss that. And I also added to this appointment some flashcards, which has been so good because some people can't really tell you. But when they see these flashcards, they say, oh, I hate that outfit. That's too boring. Or, oh, I love that outfit. That's me. So that's really helpful because you have to, being in this profession has taught me, I was never a professional teacher. They all know this. People learn in different ways. Some people talk it out. Some people want to read and go through content. Other people are more visual and they want to pick out pictures. And then, so I've learned that this first appointment can sometimes be so long and detailed, like people start getting that look like, oh God, is this over yet? Yes, I know. But then other people, they're just really engaged and they're like, oh, they're asking questions. So I kind of have to be in tune with what people are feeling in that appointment. But a lot of that appointment is learning and teaching, but I also have to be really careful because I might be telling people something that they don't want to hear. So I've had appointments where a guy walked in and his pants were so clearly too short. I mean, I saw his ankles, and so I kind of skirted around that. And then at the end, I said, so when we're shopping for pants, these are the lengths we want to look at. This length might be too short, but I didn't say, oh, look at your pants. That's hideous,
No, you wouldn't say that.
Some people would love it. We'd sit there and laugh. And everyone's different. And I had a really interesting appointment recently. A lady contacted me from another state to work with her son who lives here. And she just said, he still dresses like he's in high school. But she said, you have to be careful. You can't sit there and tell him what he's doing wrong. He won't be able to take it. He can't stand criticism. So we ended up working together in 3 appointments. And in a final appointment, I started really addressing it. And I actually put it in a written form and sent it to him because sometimes people would rather read it than hear you say it. But you do have to address the elephant in the room. Otherwise, you're not doing your job because you can't sit, they're not coming to you because everything's wonderful. So I find a way to address issues, what I'd like for them to try, So that's a lot of that first appointment, a lot of teaching. And when someone leaves, they have a color book and they have a style book. I have one for men and one for women that they take with them as a reference. So that's often, that first appointment lasts a couple of hours usually. Sometimes people like to bring a few of their pieces to show me, and I encourage that because I learn about them.
Sure. And then if they want to take the next step, then you go out and go shopping for them and then invite them to come in and try these things on?
Yes, sometimes we go to that step, or sometimes we go to the closet. It's really interesting. If we go to my preference really is to see their closet, but that doesn't always happen. But from what you said, yes. From the shopping, I will have gathered enough information at that first appointment to feel like I know their style and I know their sizes and I've taken pictures of them. And all of that information from that quiz and our appointment goes to a database that I access and that I always have. It's an industry database, and I'll give them a plug. It's Hue and Stripe. They're wonderful. That's where I get the questionnaire, That's where I put the pictures. That's where I do the virtual closet, all that. But yes, we go shopping. We discuss a budget, or if it's a special event, or if it's work related, I kind of know where we want to go, what they want to spend, what they need. But I always want to have some surprises for them. Something people often tell me, I never would have picked that, but I love it. So that's one of my favorite responses. But
Of course, because you present. They're so close to the forest. Sometimes they can't see through the trees, and they need an outsider to say, "You might like this. Let's try this on and see how this looks." And
that's often what people need. I mean, even I have worked with a stylist once. I had a friend who was a stylist in another city, and we shopped together. And I thought, oh, it's just, and I know stylists who have their own stylists, but I don't do that very often. But yeah, it's that something new to discover too.
Sure. You mentioned a budget, and I would assume that comes up in conversation. Do you have a budget to work with? And also, do you do special events like weddings and maybe vacations or corporate retreats or things like that?
I have talked at a couple of conferences, local conferences, and I the one I did most recently was about color, and it's because it's trending. Everyone loves color, and I didn't even start talking about color. That can be a whole other podcast, but color is very important. It's almost more important than the clothes, because if you don't know your best colors, you're going to keep buying the wrong colors. You could be spending thousands of dollars on the wrong color. So I did speak about that with the group and had some demonstrations. And I remember that group really liked my story about Emily Blunt, the famous actress. And Emily has always been brunette. She's beautiful. She has blackish, very cool hair and blue eyes, light skin, probably like a winter, very cool, very bright. And then she's been changing to blonde and wearing warm highlights. And if you look at social media, people talk about her and they say, please, brunette Emily, come back. So they love that story. I was saying, here's Emily as a brunette. Here's Emily as a blonde. Do you see the difference? And they said, wow. Because as a blonde, she looked pale. She almost looked sick. But as a brunette, her blue eyes stood out. I have found that clients' native coloring is almost always the best. Not always. But I talked about that with the group. I often work with mothers of the bride and mothers of the groom to get their special dress. Sometimes I work with men for their suit. Instead of a tux, they want to buy a good suit. So I love to do that, because then we'll try to find a suit that fits them, that they can wear beyond the wedding, which is kind of a challenge. But if it's a more casual wedding, they could. So yeah, I do some special events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was curious, because sometimes you just need a little help finding that right dress or that right group of outfits for a weekend away or something like that. And
is a big one. You mentioned that. Vacations are big. Sometimes with existing clients that I know really well, they'll bring me in to help them pack. I have done that.
Well, that's great. I love that. So how do you define personal style, and why is that important to embrace individuality in fashion?
I define personal style as who you are as a person. Are you someone who wants to stand out? This is a biggie. When you enter a room, do you want to stand out and have everyone say, wow, the lady in red? Or are Are you perfectly happy being in the back and saying, oh, look at that well-dressed person? But I might not notice that person right away. Or if you're someone who is extremely creative, this is a big one, because sometimes the extremely creative person might have a very staid job. That person might work in a bank or something, or finance. So they can't express their creativeness the way they want to in their job. But anyway, the creative person will put really unusual things together. And then there's the person who's more classic. And part of my style personality is classic, but I'm actually a creative. I wear all of them. But I really like wearing a blazer. I know it does a lot for me. I feel very authoritative. And then it's good to know what your style is. So when you shop in the stores that kind of cater to that style. You're going to be happier. Like, for instance, a big style personality is a natural sporty. And this is true. Sometimes it's where you are in life. Like a mom with several kids, they're almost always, moms are natural sporty because they have to get ready quickly. They might be going to the gym. They're dropping off their kids. They're doing this and that. So they want washable clothes, functional clothes. They might not want to walk around in a long maxi dress with heels. So that style. There's also bohemian. They're very kind of romantic, roughly, really different. Sometimes the Western bohemian comes out in people, but that's a style right now. Midi is a style. And then there's the alluring style. I had a client like this just on Saturday. And when she was walking in, I thought, wow, she has to be alluring, because she had a crop top on and really snug pants. She looked great in it, fortunately. But she really loves to show her body, which is fine, great. She's comfortable doing that. But she can't really do that at work. So she tones it down. We talked about that. So it's good to know what your preferences are. And then I like to couple that intuitive expression of yourself with what works with your shape and what are your best colors within that. So it's almost like a triad of things that kind of intersect, but they're all important.
They are very important, and you've taught me that over the years too, about color and what colors you look good, you feel good, and you feel confident. So my next question is about confidence. And what do you wish more people understood about the relationship between clothing and confidence?
I think that I wish people really understood that when you love the way you look, it just emanates from you. You have confidence. When you know you look great, your clothes fit you great, your colors bring out your best features, that when you go places, people will notice, because you are every day you are a walking billboard of who you are. You're saying something about yourself. You're saying, I'm sad, or I'm happy, or I love this dress. Don't you love this dress? Or I know this suit fits me really great, and I know I look really fierce. I'm out there. I'm going to conquer the world. So there is a clear connection between how you look on the outside with how you feel on the inside. So that's just a really simple principle, that how you look influences how you feel and how you project yourself to others.
Absolutely. Absolutely true. And so, that leads me to, I'm sure you see examples of transformation when people go in and put something on, and you can tell right away that they know that they feel awesome and really special in something. And so could you give me a few success stories and examples?
I think that one really recent one was a gentleman I worked with. He was in his 40s, And he was very tall and very, very slim, which, I find that the general public never has any sympathy for thin people. We're always talking about weight, I have to lose weight. But really, slim people struggle with fit and style because their clothes have to really fit them. So their clothes need to fit them or else they're too big. And certain styles, they don't want to look thinner. So that's a really hard, because we're all told wear dark colors, wear black, blah, blah, blah. But the slim person, they struggle. So they're a really interesting client, and I love helping them. But I work with a guy, he loved black. He wore it all the time. He loved black. His whole closet was black. And his pants were not long enough because he had trouble buying his inseam. So we went into a store, and I really try to stress with people, don't expect to go into a store, try it on, and it fits perfectly without any alterations. I purposely picked a store that did alterations for him. And we found he had beautiful coloring. He was a summer. He had somewhat light hair, really beautiful blue eyes. And he wanted some dating clothes. And we went into a store. We found a bluish teal colored blazer. And he tried it on. We had it fitted to him. And he wore a knit, like a t-shirt underneath, because, I didn't want to dress him like a lawyer or something, but because he was more casual in his style. And we found some great pants that were not skinny leg, because he has skinny legs. And again, the person who's really slim, they want to add girth. So the slim, tall guy looks better in the straight pants or the wider leg. So we found a wider leg pant that was the right length. And then we bought him some beautiful shoes, because it's really true that men look at each other's shoes. So I always try to talk male clients into finding some really great shoes, leather or really snazzy sneakers. So when he tried that on and it was fitted, and he said, wow, I really like the way I look. And I said, and you look great. But I know it felt weird for him because he loves to dress in black. So he's one example. I think another one was from last year. It was a mother of the groom. And they are, mothers of the groom, they're kind of overlooked sometimes. And this mother, fortunately, had communicated well with the mother of the bride, with the color, and they're all on board with colors, and there wasn't that going back and forth, what am I going to do, which I've had to deal with. Anyway, but we went to a bridal store. There's a certain store in town where everyone goes. I'm going to tell you, it's Mamar. They have beautiful mother of the bride, mother of the groom, formal gowns. They have a lot of them, but everyone goes there. And I remember back from my marketing days, to really stand out, you have to find out your best version of you. You have to stand out and what that means for you. And so she was not a tall lady. We went to a bridal store and we tried on some samples. She was a redhead with blue eyes. She was a spring, very fair. We found a dress that was satin and teal, and it showed her figure. It wasn't all the way up to here. It kind of had a neck and showed her figure, and in the back it just cascaded down in ruffles. It was gorgeous, but we didn't want to overdo it. At a wedding, it's a whole nother podcast, but you are like a secondary person at a wedding. Don't ever go to a wedding and wear like bright red or bright yellow and like a super plunging neckline or really sexy dress, because people aren't there to look at you. So just remember that. Anyway, little sidebar. Anyway, so we found a dress, gorgeous, teal. And then the bridal store fitted it to her exactly. And it was done in time for the wedding. So I kind of changed my mind after that appointment, encouraging mothers of the bride not to go to the department store and pick what's there along with everyone else. You go in those dressing rooms and people come out, how does this look? What do you think? But when you go to the bridal store, again, she did some alterations, fit her perfectly, and it was a fresh dress too. No one else had been trying it on. So that was I love that story because it was different. And I learned something too, because I'm always learning. I have to learn too with clients. And
those were good examples. So what advice do you have to someone who needs to let go of clothes in their closet? Maybe they don't fit, they no longer wear it, or even if it's something sentimental. What do you suggest?
Well, usually after this first appointment with me, I always tell people to go back, and if they want to do a closet cleanse, I'll say, go back to your closet and you start to clean out. If something doesn't fit and you haven't worn it in 10 years, don't keep that, or clothes that are stained, or something that's really obviously out of style from 20 years ago. So you kind of go through and clean things out. But I also, when I walk, it's funny, I was in a seminar once and learned, it was very insightful. The teacher said, when you walk in and see your client's closet, you will know where that person is in life, at what stage. Sometimes I'll walk in and I'll see a bunch of like bar clothes from their 20s when they were going out, finding that special person, but they're still holding on to them, but they're in their 30s or 40s. That's a big transition. When you're like maybe leaving like BB, remember that store, Real Sexy Clothes, and then you still want to look nice, but you're probably not going to wear that top anymore or whatever. But you can see where people are in life, or if someone is grieving. If they still have a lot of clothes from this part of their life, maybe when they're married. Oh, my husband loved his dress. Yeah, I used to wear that a lot when we go here. Yeah, or career. Because people can grieve the loss of a career too. Because sometimes your career changes and you didn't want it to change. It was forced on you. So you're kind of grieving about that. But so you can see that. So I just try to listen, and I don't really discuss the personal reasons for what they have, but I'll just say, maybe it's time to let this part of this piece of clothing go because it might not look the best on you. I don't say because you're not married anymore. I would never do that. But I talk about how it relates. Yes. But also, sometimes people tell me, and this was recent, this is a closet cleanse. We actually met 3 times, and I think I'm going back again because she was a serial shopper online. Anyway, she said, my husband loved that dress. She's a widow, right? So I didn't tell her to get rid of it. I said, well, that's great. Well, you should keep that then. If that's a good memory for you. And it's funny, I saw it on some website. This woman had the dress she wore when her first date with her husband, and they had been married a long time. And instead of keeping it in her closet, she framed it and put it on her wall. I thought that was the neatest thing. Although what I wore with my husband, I would never frame. It wasn't really great, but I thought, yeah, you should have to be real careful because you're dealing with people's emotions when they're saying, "Oh, I love that," or but if they're saying that was a really bad time for me, I might say, well, why don't you just pack that away in another room and see if you miss it. And if you don't miss it, then you can let it go. So, yeah, because you don't want to go in and just start just throwing things in the box. I mean, it would go a lot faster. But I try to listen to what people say. But you do have a lot of sentimental things in your closet, like my mom made that for me when I was 10 years old, but if the whole closet's like that, that's a little different. But usually it's not. It's usually just a few things. And if it's a positive memory, then I won't tell them to pack it away. But if it's not, I might say, yeah, you might want to just put it away and just kind of forget about it for a while.
And you know what? It's energy that maybe could be taking up space for something new and positive. And I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer. If I'm buying something, I really try to purge something, one in, one out. It doesn't always happen, but at least, it helps me kind of move things through my closet and my house that is taking up space and energy.
Yes, you're so right, Susan. Of course, being the coach that you are,